Hey guys, today I'm out here working on trimming a couple of our goats' hoofs. So this girl here, this is Iris. We've had her for about 2 months now and she is currently bred. She came from a livestock auction, so wanted to give her plenty of time to settle in. Then we had some super hot weather, so I'm just getting to trim her hooves now and they were definitely already due when we got her. Alright, so we have her on the milking stand to hold her still. Let's go ahead and we'll get started trimming. Alright, so what I'm using, this is just a pair of hoof nippers for goat and sheep. They came from Tractor Supply. Pretty much any feed store or Amazon sells them. And they're basically just a really heavy-duty pair of pruners. So when you look at her foot, you can see her foot is extremely overgrown. All this hoof wall that's folding over the sole of her foot should be back here level with the sole. So we're going to scrape all this dirt that's stuck in there out and then trim that off. Alright, so I have her hoof wall trimmed down even with the sole of her foot. So you can see this white part that's squishy, and if you get too deep that will have blood supply. That's the sole, and then this V shape around the outer part of it, that's the hoof wall. So as long as you're only trimming the hoof wall level with the sole, you don't have to worry too much about going too short. And her feet were really overgrown, so I'm going to take a little bit off of her heels. You're fine. You're fine, Iris. Alright, so we're going to move on to her back foot. So I'm just going to pick her foot up and do the exact same thing as the front. Trim. Just going to trim off the overgrown hoof. Hey. Hoof wall. You're fine. Iris. You can't fall down. Okay. Good. So same thing as the front, I just trimmed it so the hoof wall is nice and flat and even with her sole. Okay, so we're going to continue same thing on the other side. So the frequency you have to do this varies greatly on where your goats are living. If they're on a harder, dry surface that they're wearing their feet down, they're not going to need this nearly as often as if they're on grass or if it's muddy and they aren't on a hard surface to wear them down. So these girls, like I said, were already due when we bought them, but since they're bred, I wanted to give them plenty of time to settle in. Then we had some really hot weather, so I didn't want to stress them out too much doing this. So today we have a nice cool day, so I figured it's a perfect day to take them out and get this done. And then usually you don't really have to clip their dew claws back here, but since she's so far overdue, see how they're growing and curling out, we're going to trim them a little bit. These are really dry and hard. They're okay. Hey. Iris. So since her dew claw is so overgrown, I'm not going to take it all the way down today. Each time I trim her, I'm going to just take it down a little bit at a time so I don't get too far and get into the sensitive spot and make it bleed. Alright, so we're on our final foot. Same thing, just going to pick it up. So with the back feet, they do tend to like to kick a lot if they're not used to this. What I usually do is if she kicks, I just stop trimming and hold her foot up tight to her body. And then when she stops, I start trimming again. You don't really want to trim while they're kicking like that, because that'd make it really easy to accidentally trim too short. So it's really important to make sure you keep up with this, because you can see this outer part of her foot had grown more than the inner toe, and letting that happen, it'll put more pressure and rock her off of her foot so she's not walking level on it, and that can make other soreness issues long term if they're walking on their feet with them growing crooked like that. And if they get too far overdue and they get crooked like that, you can get them hard, it can be hard to get them back to walking flat correctly on their feet. Girl. Alright, so that is just how quick and easy it is to trim your goat's hooves on your own. So all you need is a good pair of trimmers. It's a lot easier with a stand, but if you have somebody else to hold them or a spot to tie them, you can do it without the milking stand. But this just makes it a lot easier. It gives them a good solid place to make them stand still. And then we have the bucket on the front, so if she's eating, she's not even really paying attention to what I'm doing with her feet. So that's just how quick and easy it is to trim your goat's feet on your own. If you keep up with it, like I said, they were overdue, so you can see her sole was really overgrown and folding under, or her hoof wall was really overgrown and folding under the sole of her foot. So it did take a little bit longer to get hers back into shape. But if you're keeping up with it and doing it periodically, it's just trimming that little bit of extra hoof wall that grows down past the sole. But that should wrap up today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. You didn't survive. Why are you like a moose to a kid now?